Life is very counterintuitive. Counterintuitive means that it's the exact opposite of what you thought it was. A lot of things in life just completely run counter to what we believe it is and how it works, etc. And control is one of those things. Sometimes in order to get more control, you have to let go of it. Sometimes feeling the most in control involves totally letting go of it. And not from this subtle manipulation of like I'm letting go so I can secretly grab on, but just an honest letting go. Just an honest stepping back, just an honest giving it up. And then just surrendering to what is, allowing life to kind of move, allowing it to occur naturally, organically, allowing it to kind of flow, allowing what's arising inside of you to arise and just kind of guide you rather than needing to control essentially out of fear. And life is kind of this balance of holding on to control and then letting it go. And you kind of have to be able to like ride this kind of wave because in some situations it's pretty good to just like assert some control and it's pretty beneficial. And then in some situations, that paradigm and that way of being, it doesn't work. It actually starts to screw up what's happening and it starts to interfere with what's going on. So again, it's like this continuous attunement to life and having this ability to kind of like dance with it because there's a rhythm and a flow to life. And it's just kind of having this capacity to sense into the situation and know when to hold on, when to let go. And being able to move back and forth between these two flexibly. And you can build up your intuition of this over time, and meditation really helps with this a lot. And it requires essentially a lot of attention to some of these subtler details, which I can't really go into in this video. But I really want to bring up simply how letting go of control in a lot of cases actually leads to more well-being and feeling more quote-unquote in control. So a really good example of this is in relation to other people. How does it feel when people try and control you? Of course it feels terrible. You don't really like that. You don't really like to be manipulated by other people. And other people don't really like that either. So in order to have a lot of relationships go smoother, just letting go of control of people actually helps quite a lot. And again, it's this sort of duality between holding on to control and then really letting go. And when you're interacting with other people, there's sort of this like dance going on. There's a rhythm to the interaction that you kind of have to really begin to notice. And what I mean here by control in relation to other people isn't like literally controlling them, but it's having this sort of capacity to assert yourself, for example, in order to maybe get some needs met, control a situation in order to get something that you really need, right? But then sometimes you have to let that go in order for the energy to move properly, in order for the situation to really express itself as it wants to. Because sometimes you're pulled to assert yourself and control, and then sometimes you're pulled to step back. And if you can identify what's going on at these like subtler levels, the polarity and the flow of energy begins to stop. It doesn't really stop, but begins to kind of like freeze in place. It gets stuck, essentially. So let's look at some very interesting examples of where control really begins to cause a lot of problems here. One example is being needy. Because what is neediness from one point of view? It's essentially just wanting to like control a situation in order to get something for yourself, right? Which under all circumstances, under some circumstances, I mean, isn't helpful. Under some, it is. Sometimes you have to be assertive and just like communicate a need, right? I have to go to the bathroom. I need to go get some food, etc., right? Very basic, simple stuff. But then sometimes it, of course, becomes just like overly controlling, manipulative, and it starts to make the energy kind of toxic. So you got to kind of step back. Of course, trust issues as well. Where do trust issues come from? This over-controlling sort of mechanism, this inability to kind of just like step back and just surrender. Of course, this only works really in relation to people who actually respect you and actually really trust. I mean, there's like a mutual sense of trust going on in overall respect. But again, just kind of notice that whenever there's a sort of like trust issue, right, your mind can kind of create one artificially where there is none, and then it's really happening due to fear, wanting to control the other person, and then counterintuitively, this pushes them away. It makes them not want to interact with you because like the feeling of interacting with you isn't very fun anymore. It doesn't feel very healthy. It feels toxic to them. It starts to feel unhealthy to them. And people like detect that. They might not be able to like say it in a very linguistic and conceptual way that I can kind of point to, right? But people can just like intuit that. They can instinctually detect that, and they just know like in their gut, like, okay, something here is kind of off, right? Of course, over dependence and a lot of this kind of behavior, right? Let's say controlling in an intimate relationship, this begins to stifle the growth of your partner. And if you have a partner who really cares about their own growth, they will begin to detect that quite fast. And of course, this begins to throw the relationship off course. This starts to create a lot of unnecessary problems that can really lead to just the end of the relationship. So this can also lead to a lot of unnecessary power struggles, needing to like cling on to power, right? For what? For what? Essentially, you're going to lose that power at one point. Learn to just let go, right? Learn to hold on when it's necessary, and then learn to let go. Again, it's really this balance of holding on and letting go. I think a good example of this idea of holding on that I'm referring to is holding on to, let's say, a responsibility. So if you're in a relationship to another person, right, an intimate one, that's a responsibility that you guys have that has to be watered and nurtured and taken care of and a lot more. And you have to hold on to it, not in a clingy way, but in a way where you're maintaining it, essentially. Same thing if you have a plant, right? You're responsible for watering the plant. You got to hold on to the relationship to it. You water it, you maintain it, right? But the second you water the plant and it's okay, you let go. You don't like keep watering the plant and like any of this kind of stuff. Like you let go, you go do something else. You go do the next thing that is demanding of your attention, demanding of your time, demanding of your energy. It's this ability to, when the moment calls for it, focus on something and really keep it there. And then, reality's in this kind of constant state of flux and change, right? And then it shifts and you got to go and do something else. This capacity to then let go and then do what is necessary in that experience, what you're really most guided to, what is aligned the best with you, right? And kind of what you're called to, right? Where you're even demanded in some cases, if it's another kind of responsibility. How about in emotional well-being, right? Try and really control your emotions. This begins to actually interfere with emotions because the sensations and emotions in your body, they're like a wild energy that want to actually just express themselves the way that they want to express themselves in a totally natural and organic way. When you try and interfere with them and control them, this actually leads to kind of the repression of that force of energy, whether it's sadness or anger, etc. So super counterintuitively, by letting go, you actually start to feel a lot better. By letting go of the control of the sensations in your body, the energy flows a lot better. By letting go of controlling emotions, they can express themselves a lot better. This doesn't mean that you start getting like reactive and aggressive, even aggressive, or just like screaming at someone. Counterintuitively, by letting go of control, right, in this more meditative way that I'm actually discussing, this leads you to actually being more embodied within your emotions, more connected to them, and less reactive, more grounded. So again, super counterintuitive. Letting go here of control doesn't mean like screw it, like I'm just going to go into full rage mode and reactivity mode against this person because Lucas said not to control it. It's more so just mixed with awareness, presence, right? And doing this sort of meditative style work isn't really going to lead you to what the circumstance that I just described. Instead, it's just more present, non-reactive, and it also allows the trapped energy and emotions in your body, right, that your body's holding there through tension, to start to surface. You start to just overall feel a lot better simply just by letting go of control, allowing yourself to actually be as you are. This is really the most loving way of relating to yourself, just allowing yourself to simply be as you are. It sounds very corny, right? We all hear that kind of stuff, be as you are. But what does it really mean? It's just like about allowing what is happening inside of you to exist. And there's a lot of things happening inside of you that you don't like. There's all sorts of parts of you that you do not like. There's all sorts of thoughts that arise in your mind that you don't like. There's all sorts of emotions and feelings that occur inside of your body that you don't like. There's all sorts of parts of your body that you feel disconnected from, they feel numb, etc. There's all sorts of stuff like that occur. Right? And by allowing yourself to be as you are, this means really fully coming into acceptance and connection with yourself. This is really about allowing yourself to be as you are. That part of you that you don't like, you learn to accept it. You learn to bring it love. Counterintuitively, that allows it to heal. That allows it to integrate back into your psyche. Moving on, spiritual growth. How about this one? How about controlling all of the sort of like spiritual dynamics that occur inside of a person's life, especially for those of you who are interested in enlightenment, right? This basically just makes your mind rigid. This makes you create unnecessary resistance. This blocks full engagement with the present moment, and it blocks you from being able to embrace the unknown. Whenever you're trying to like just control something, you're kind of, again, keeping it within the known. You're not able to kind of step back, let go, and then just embrace the deep sense of unknown that arises. That's a core part of really waking up. It's recognizing that life is mystery, essentially. Life is beyond knowing. Life is beyond concept. Life is beyond theory. Life is beyond symbolic representation. Counterintuitively, this doesn't leave you ignorant. This leaves you with a very direct consciousness of the very nature of being. Again, even with resistance, trying to control your resistance just creates a lot more resistance. Trying to control your mind, for example, if you're doing meditation, you got to control your mind. You got no thoughts, right? This just it creates even more unnecessary chaos, right? Controlling everything in the present, it blocks the flow of energy in the present. So all these sort of spiritual dynamics in your spiritual growth, they start to just, your growth hinders and all this stuff. It's this, you just interfere with it. You get in the way of it, right? It just doesn't work anymore. So then letting go of control allows all this stuff to move and flow. The energy can move and flow. And then a lot of unnecessary suffering simply doesn't even get created in the first place. How about work and creativity? Try forcing yourself to come up with some new creative insight. Those of you who are musicians or artists, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Try forcing yourself to just write some kind of genius masterpiece. Try forcing yourself to do very great high quality work. It doesn't really work like that. A lot of this stuff is more spontaneous. It happens through connection to being, connection to the present, connection to your own body, connection to this and everything that's in this experience right here. When you're really present in the moment, this breaks you free from a lot of the conditioning that, of course, doesn't keep you present in the moment. And all that stuff is kind of hindering your creative skills. It's hindering your creative abilities. So then, when you're present, it's like you're kind of building this new conditioning based off of something more evolved, something more aligned, something more true. Moving on, how about health? Always trying to control your mind, control your emotions. A lot of this just leads to a lot of unnecessary stress. This kind of ties into emotional well-being like I was talking about before. Always trying to control your health leads to sickness because the very impulse to always be in control is coming from fear and sickness. So of course, when it's coming from that place, the only thing you're going to end up creating is more sickness. Moving on is finances, right? How about anxiety about money? You're always kind of trying to control your money. You can't just like spend it and then let go of it. Right? How does that feel whenever you spend it and you're like, you don't want to actually let go of it, right? It keeps you in this sort of just tension and unnecessary anxiety, right? And I'm not talking about like just like overspending and spending and spending and spending, right? How about controlling and trying to just like always get more money, right? That comes across as needy for those of you who do sales of any kind, right? When you're always just like trying to like control it, it just comes across as totally needy. It ends up like ruining the sale rather than allowing it to kind of happen organically and then allowing, hopefully your skills to actually like shine forth, right? So there's also a fear of future uncertainty in relation to finances that happens when you're always trying to control it. And then of course you just kind of create this psychological habit where you just get stuck in, again, just this pattern. Even if you get all the money that you want, your mind is wired in that sort of like neurotic way. So even if you get everything that you want, your mind is still going to perpetuate those subconscious patterns. To learn more about that, check out my previous video. But moving on, how about parenting? This kind of ties on to the relationships component, but it takes it in a little bit of a different direction. Try controlling your child. Try controlling your child's ability to learn and grow independently. Try controlling their behavior nonstop. They will grow up to hate you. They will grow up to be sick of you. Right? This doesn't mean that you can't guide them. This doesn't mean that you can't help them. But this has to be done in a way where you're attuned to their emotional needs, attuned to their state of being in the present, attuned to what genuine goals they have, attuned to their own psychology, their values, etc. Attuned to who they are as a being rather than pushing all your beliefs of how they should be and what they should be doing onto them, right? Because that's just coming from wanting to control everything. It actually screws up the process of their own development. Why don't you just trust your kid's ability to develop? Right? Why don't you trust their ability to just grow up? Right? There's this sort of just fear that it's coming from, and it's making the situation sickening. Right? So just always trying to control the kid actually just hinders their ability to learn, to be autonomous, to be independent from you as a parent. And of course, you don't want your kid to always be dependent on you as a parent. A massive goal in parenting is allowing your kid to just be this autonomous person where they can get their own needs met and they're able to be self-sufficient. Isn't that what you want as a parent? You want your kid to grow up to be healthy and self-sufficient and ultimately not even need you, but obviously still come back and connect with you, right? Not that the relationship's done, but that they don't need you to survive. If they always need you to survive, of course, there would be a problem in their development. So that's it for this video. If you're interested in working with me one-to-one, you can apply to do so. Link is in the pinned comment. Take it easy.